Hi everyone, I'm Lynn. I wanted to start my reflection on my own racial identity development, especially after reading the Module 2 and going into the videos and readings this week, about how it really made me stop and think about my life and what it was before I came to the US and versus now. Growing up as a girl in a small Scottish village, race really wasn't something I really thought about because my environment didn't force me to. My village, and when I say village, I mean people of about 800, literally the co-op, the bakery, a butcher's shop, the pub, there was a chapel, church and the golf course and the school, that was it. So my entire village was almost entirely white. We had a Malaysian family that lived next door to us, and then there were a couple of families from India, but that was it as far as people of different ethnicity. Before moving to America, I had never met an African-American person in person. I had never met a Hispanic person or Latinx person either, even though I thought I knew some or knew about the culture and heritage from TV, which now looking back at it, it was terrible. It was very limited and very stereotyped. For those of us that are older enough to remember the TV show, we thought all Americans walked around in, we called them a 10-gallon hat, a cowboy hat and cowboy boots. Versus when I came here, some of the Americans that we first interacted with thought that all Scottish people wore kilts all the time. So just a little bit of kind of silliness. But my racial identity was really shaped by absence, the absence of racial diversity, the absence of conversations about race, the absence of an awareness that my skin color, being white, made a difference at all, that it really is, now looking at it as a racialized experience. It really wasn't until adulthood and moving to the US after we'd immigrated that I really kind of looked at how race shaped my worldview. In my life, I've had two really different experiences that I would say was kind of institutionalized racism. One was based on gender, workplace pay disparity, and then of course the aftermath of the Tubbs fire. First, the workplace, I had found out that a co-worker, same level of management that I was, with less experience and fewer responsibilities, was making almost $45,000 a year more than I was. To say that I was gobsmacked was an understatement. And as soon as I found it out, I rung up the flagpole and I made a lot of noise and a lot of people very uncomfortable, but it was resolved. That moment was really shocking for me. It really showed me how institutions can quietly normalize inequity and how identity categories like race, gender, class shape, who valued and who is overlooked. The second big instance that I can think of was the Tubbs fire, and that really took my understanding to a completely different level. Losing our family home when it completely burnt to the ground was devastating. As we moved through the recovery process, I saw firsthand how race and income shaped who was able to build and who wasn't able to rebuild. Higher income, mostly white neighbourhoods, received faster insurance payouts, easier access across contractors, and definitely more political leverage. Meanwhile, lower income communities, especially, there was a trailer park that was in Santa Rosa that burnt down, and the man there, he was fantastic. He took care of his people, but it took him getting involved to get his tenants processed in a place to live, because there was a real breakdown in communication on how that should happen and how it would happen for people who were on a lower income or subsidized incomes. Many of the communities were of colour, and they faced delays in assistance. They were underinsured, there were language barriers, and there just seemed that there was much fewer resources available. Some families were able to start building within a year, other families waited years for permits and insurance appeals. In fact, there are still 2 lots in our street to this day that have not been built on because they just couldn't afford to rebuild because they were underinsured. The experience about institutionalized racism, it really made it visible in a way that I just hadn't expected to see it, and it was a way I couldn't ignore. It was part of the reason I joined the Red Cross. I just felt like I had to be able to do something, but I didn't know what it was, and they were there and they were helping people and trying to get them basic necessities and needs. So join the Red Cross. That's my plug for the Red Cross. I think the fact that I really didn't personally experience racialized barriers in disaster recovery was just another reminder for me that I had a privilege that someone else didn't have, and I just didn't think it was fair. During both the pay inequity and the Tubbs fire, I was in middle adulthood, which Erickson, I think, is the one that described it as the stage of generativity and stagnation. It's a stage where you're supposed to be focused on contributing and leading and mentoring and building something meaningful. So when I found out about my pay gap, it was just about money. It was really a challenge to my sense of purpose and value. With the Tubbs fire, it wasn't just about losing our family home. It was about watching systems fail people in predictable and really racialized ways. Being in that developmental stage made me more aware that there was a structural issue around, and it was just made me more angry and more motivated to try to do something about it. Erickson stages also helped me to understand how institutionalized racism affects people differently depending on their age, which I hadn't considered either. For adolescents, it's more about shaped identity and that sense of belonging. But for adults, it was more about economic stability, their career paths, and long-term well-being. Institutional racism isn't just an event, it really is a developmental disruptor. So critical race theory for me teaches that it's really not an exception, it's embedded in systems, policies, and institutional practices. It really pushes us to look at incidents and examine structures to maintain racial inequality. So one of the actions that I can take grounded in CRT is to advocate for transparency and equity in institutional policies, especially around pay, hiring, promotion, and for the Red Cross, and disaster recovery resources. I'm really proud to say that I have a very diverse department. I have 40 people that work for me, and I have people of all walks of life. And I think that makes us a much stronger team because we all have different strengths and a different lens of the world. And we all come together to help move our patients and help our clients. Under Delgado and I can't remember the second, Stefanik, it reminded us that CRT challenges dominant narratives and exposes the mechanisms that reproduce racial hierarchy. So I think for me, if I could go back and change things, I think I would still advocate for myself, but I'd widen the lens per se. Who else wasn't being underpaid, or who was being underpaid? Was it just me, or is there multiple people, and see what we could do to help that? Who's left behind in disaster recovery? What patterns exist across race and class? I think CRT really teaches us that personal experiences are connected to systemic patterns, and we'd have to take those moments not just to address my own inequity, but to challenge the structures that create inequity for others. Understanding my racial identity and the privilege embedded in it has really been an ongoing process. And I think the theories in this module have helped me really connect the dots between my own experiences and the systems I've worked in and the broader patterns of inequity that shape people's lives. They'll help me be more intentional as a social worker, committed to equity, accountability, and systemic change.